friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sasha. I thought of a fun thing I could do with you guys, and I thought of this as I was browsing a bookstore earlier this month. Admittedly, I don't get out much, and so this is going to be a way, if I make this a series and continue doing it, it'll be a way for me to get out of the house, number one, and to make some fun bookish content, number two, and number three, to sort of see what's trending or what booksellers think is important to have on display. So as the title of the video says, I haven't totally confirmed what it will be yet, but I will by the time you're watching this. We're going to be judging some book displays at bookstores, and we're starting with a B. Dalton, which is technically Barnes & Noble, but it's called B. Dalton. I don't really know the semantics or the legality of it all, but I figured my best shot at starting this challenge is to go to the dark romance book display. This one is quite large, which sort of tracks with what is trending in reading spaces. It's also one of the first displays you see when you walk into the store. In this location is just the huge romance section. And the thing I actually think the store did really well, I haven't been in this store, this specific one, in many years. So I was very used to the old layout, so I did walk the entire store. The dark romance section is sort of in the front corner over here. The YA section is separated by a complete row and row and row of other books. So we have dark romance, other stuff, young adult is over in the other corner on the complete other side of the store. I think that is a great tactic for bookstores to use, especially with more of the cartoonish romance covers coming out that then have very not cartoon-like content on the inside. And I don't really want to get into the discussion of should romance have specific covers or not. I just think it's one way to combat that is to completely separate the two genres into two separate areas of the store. So when I looked at this dark romance book display, there were a total of 27 books, unless I've miscounted. That's of course a possibility. I'm gonna have all the books on the screen at some point so you can count with me, and if I've miscounted, hey, math's not my strong suit. That's why I'm a book girly. Number of books that I've read, based on what they promoted, I've read 4 of these. Number of books that I've heard of is 18 and a half, and I'll explain the half when we get there. Authors I do not support are 0. I try not to promote authors who don't align with my moral and ethical values. So I did another display that will be a separate video, and there were some authors that I won't be promoting, which is why I had to make this a category. We'll get there when we get there. So I support, as far as I know, all the authors, or I just don't know anything about them and don't know not to support them. Books I want to read, we'll be taking a tally, and I will be letting you know at the end of this video how many of the books I haven't read I would actually be interested in picking up myself. So I'm so prepared. I definitely had this ready beforehand. Dark romance, want to read. Okay. So coming up first, we have Katie Robert, who is an author I have followed for quite a long time, since Neon Gods was coming out and that whole series started. I have read 7 of their books. Some of them really worked for me. The whole Neon Gods series was working. The Evil Villains series she does had a little too many triggers for me for some reason, and when I was reading them, it was like my first true step into dark romance. And it didn't always go well. I was learning at the time, oh, this makes me really anxious. I can't read about this. So some of her series really worked, some of them didn't, and that's not her fault. That is a reader preference. And then this author is a great resource for indie authors. I follow her on Blue Sky and Instagram, and on Blue Sky she has this whole starter kit on her website for indie authors. And if you're an indie author, you should definitely check it out because it has some really great information. And I think I've used the word she already in this video. which I will have to put great big text over my dumb, silly face. Katie Robert has come out as being non-binary. They use they, them pronouns. And I've already fucked that up. So, off to a fantastic start. On the table, there were 2 books, A Court of the Vampire Queen, which I do have up behind me, right here-ish, and then Wicked Beauty, which I think is the 2nd book in the Neon Gods series. So that's what was highlighted from Katie Robert. Up next, we have 2 books that I own. We have Pen Pal and Phantasma. I have both of these books. I'm very excited to read both of them. I have read neither. So, yeah, excited about these. Up next, we have Hexed by Emily McIntyre. I own the first book in this series. I have not read it yet, and this author inspires me so much. She talks about her journey of cancer and chemotherapy while trying to continue this series and write these books, and it's just so inspiring, and I love her tenacity to just keep going. And as someone who's chronically ill and disabled, I relate a lot to some of the things she discusses, and not all, obviously, but some of the struggles she faces day to day. So I love her so much. I can't wait to start reading this series. I think this is the 6th book in this series, but I don't quote me on that. Up next, we have Raina Kent, God of Malice. There were 3 books on the table. I did read the first book a few months ago as an audiobook. I didn't even rate it, to be totally honest, because I had a lot of problems, mostly with that first chapter and how it's an SA scene right out the gate, and then we're supposed to be in love with that man. I couldn't get on board with it. There's dubious consent, there's CNC, consensual non-consent. This was neither of those things. This was straight up assault, and I was like, it's a big no for me. So I will not be continuing with this series, and I know this is a hot take because people love this author, and I think that's great for you, but she was not great for me. So we can just keep going our separate ways, and I think that's totally fine. I'm not going to bash her or anything, it just didn't work for me. Up next is Sarah Kate. I've heard of this author for sure. I feel like she is a name that's been around a really long time in this genre. I feel like I remember hearing about her even when I was in high school. I feel like a friend of mine was reading her books, which I don't know. You can judge that. I'm not going to. So I've heard of this author. I've never tried any of them. We're actually going to take a little journey to... I'm going to use Goodreads, even though I prefer Storygraph now. But we're going to look up one of these books. Which one should we do? Let's do Praise. I feel like that's part of a series. So Praise is book number 1 in the Salacious Players Club. He calls me perfect, his flawless pet, his good girl. Broken down and wounded by my emotionally neglectful ex, I wanted someone to tell me I was good enough. Then I stumbled into a new job with a boss who brings me to my knees literally. He has me do things a real secretary would never do. Emerson Grant tells me I'm more than just good enough, I'm worthy of his praise. I'm not going to read the whole description, but just based on that, I would say this is interesting to me. I'm going to add her to want to read. So we're just, if there's an author who has multiple books on the table, I'm just going to look up one. So we have Sarah Kate Praise. Want to read. Okay. Up next, we have Promises and Pomegranates and The Tearsmith. Both new to me authors, but I do feel like I've maybe heard of Promises and Pomegranates. That Promises and Pomegranates. That was way harder than it should have been for me. Let me split windows here so I can do this a little faster. All right, let's look this up. So yeah, as I suspected, this one is a Hades and Persephone's retelling. Dr. Cal Anderson assumes his heart worked at some point in his life, but at 32 years old, I love that he's that age, the organ in his chest seems to play a mechanical role at best. His cold, emotionless existence gives him an edge as a fixer and in-house physician for the mafia. Intrigued. While his judgment is impartial and complication-free. Until Elena Ritchie, a boss's 20-year-old daughter. I don't love that age gap. If he was 42 and she was 30, better. I don't love that age gap. I'm gonna say no. Let's look up The Tearsmith by Aaron Doom. What a name. Okay, here we go. Boop, 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 boop. Growing up in a ghastly orphanage run by an abusive matron, Nika coped the only way she could by retreating to her imagination, where she lived out fantastical stories, especially about the Tearsmith, the man who makes tears, a terrifying figure who forges all the fears that dwell in people's hearts. When she's finally taken in by an adoptive family at 17, oh god. Nika thinks she's leaving the group home, its torments, and her prison of otherworldly tales behind, until Regal or Rigel, a young man raised from birth in the same dreadful orphanage, joins her new family. He's mesmerizingly handsome as he is troubled. How old is he, though? This is another one I would skip. Okay. Because I'm not sure about the ages, and I don't know if I love the fact that they both come from abusive orphanage. I get that that's like a starting point for why they would come together. It's, what is it called when you have a group of people who are doing something painful and trauma bonding. They're trauma bonded. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna skip that one. Okay, next. We have Harley LaRoe. We have Her Soul to Take, the entire series. I own the first book in this series. I actually just got it like last week in the super pretty special deluxe edition that was at Target. I think the author is a very cool person, and I follow them on social media. I'm pretty sure this is another author who would prefer they, them pronouns, but I don't know that for a fact. So I try and use they, them pronouns if I'm unsure. I think it's pretty easy to do, except for when I slip up, which I do quite often, and then I try and correct myself either in the edit or in real time. I highly recommend this author. I have started their Losers Duet, which is a duology, clearly, by the term duet. And the only reason I didn't continue with it was I was having some personal anxiety at the time, and when the conflict came, I was like, I can't do it! So I didn't stop the books because I didn't like them. I stopped them because my anxiety was like, this is making it worse. I was like, I liked the characters so much that seeing them struggling, I was like, I gotta dip for a minute. So, recommend. Very excited. Happy to see them. Okay, up next, Sophie Lark and the Kingmakers, year 1, 2, and 3. Sounds familiar, but I have no idea about this series, so let's look it up. Kingmakers, Sophie. I feel like I've definitely heard of this author. How is nothing coming up when I type in Kingmakers, Sophie Lark? That's wild. What are we doing? I can't get these books to come up. I'll keep trying. I got Sophie Lark finally, so now I can go to her Goodreads page, and hopefully she will have these listed. Oh, it's called Year 1. I wouldn't have known that based on the fact that Kingmakers is humongous on the front cover. Okay, so it's called Year 1. Leo Gallo, son of Sebastian and Elena. So it sounds like potentially this is a spin-off series maybe, if these are the children of her previous characters. Mafia families from around the world send their children to Kingmakers Academy to learn the skills of criminal enterprise. Under the rules of Sanctuary, students are forbidden to fight or kill, but rivalries are high. How are rivalries high? I get tensions are high. Tensions inflamed and forbidden love arises in the most unlikely places. That really wasn't enough to get me interested in this. I'll be quite frank with you. it has some pretty good ratings, and then people who are just like, it wasn't for me. I'm not sold on the description, so I'm just gonna move it right along into the next set of books, which unfortunately is A Touch of Darkness. I read this book in 2022. It's a Hades and Persephone retelling, which I love. I love trying all different types of those. This writing didn't work for me. I really had a bad time. And I didn't even finish the whole book. I think I just skimmed to see like how she ended it, because I couldn't stand the writing. So that's a me problem. Let's move on to what's next. Lights Out by my girl Novessa Allen. I love Josh. He's my number one boyfriend at the moment. Book boyfriend, fictional boyfriend. I should add that. Yeah, I should add that. I gushed about this book in my review, which you can see on my channel. Loved it. I listened to the audiobook, which had 2 amazing narrators. I think they made the story, I wouldn't know because I never read it first, but I think the story was so well done from their voices and their points of view. Highly recommend. Can't wait for the next book. Can't wait for other things this author's going to write in the future. Really excited about it. Let's move on. Up next is H.D. Carlton, Haunting Adeline. I am in fact not sure if these are both the first book, or I can't tell. I think it's maybe just 2 different editions of the same book. I don't know, I'm very confused, because I know it's a duet. I know that there's Haunting Adeline 1 and Haunting Adeline 2, and I can't tell which is which. Because they both have the same little blurb, cat and mouse duet. They both say that. Maybe it's on the side, on the spine, and it says 1 and 2. Anyway, it also has Does It Hurt? I own the first book in this series, but I haven't read it yet. And I'm really hoping I like this author's voice because I like them as a person on social media. And I would like to enjoy this book that sort of sparked the whole dark romance phenomenon. And like, this was everyone's first dark romance book. And it's like, maybe you shouldn't have started here, but okay. So yeah, I have heard a lot about it. Am hoping I enjoy it. We will see. Up next is Pestilence, I got there, by Lauren Thalissa, and also Rhapsodic. Rhapsodic. I don't know, I'm doing my best, clearly. So this is where the 18.5 came in the beginning, because I was like, Pestilence sounds like the 4 Horsemen. And I was like, I know there's a series about the 4 Horsemen, and I know I've had it on my TBR since I found it years and years ago. And then when I looked it up, they just changed these covers, my guy. It used to be men on the covers, like men's faces. I think they would stand like this, right? And they all just had like profiles of their faces for all the horsemen. So I was like, this sounds like something I know, but I don't recognize the author's name, and I don't recognize the cover. And then I Googled it, and it is in fact the series I was thinking of. So I would like to read this. So we'll add Pestilence Laura T. as another book I would really like to read. It's dark romance. It's the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse, and I'm guessing a human falls in love with them each. And I don't know if it's by choose. Does one human get all of them, or is it a different human in every book? I will have to read to find out, because I'm genuinely so excited. I love 4 Horsemen stories. I love demons. I love angels. It's something I'm like really excited to read about. So yes. Another banger, Zodiac Academy. I own the first book in this series. It's over here. You can't see it. I own it. I have it. I'm scared to start this series. It is so long. It's like maybe 12 books. That could be a lie. I could have made that up. But it's really long, and when I start something, the sun just came out, so the lighting is gonna get crazy. When I start a series and I really get like obsessed with it, I have to read all of them. So I fear that's going to happen if I start this series and become obsessed with it. And it's like, I don't know that I have the time to just read 12 books in a series in 2025. I might make time, maybe. I don't know. So that's, yeah, this I knew about. Okay, I think that was everything, maybe, hopefully. Or my things are out of order. Let me go really quickly through. No, that was all of them. Okay, so we started with 18 and a half books that I've heard of, and now we have a total of 27 books I've heard of because I've now heard of all of them, and the ones I didn't know I looked up. We would move this up to books I want to read that I haven't read yet, too. I would say Sarah Kate Praise, and I would also obviously say Pestilence by Laura Thaliser. Those both sound like really exciting series to me that I think I would have a really good time with. I can't think of anything else I would like to say for this video. This is very experimental for me. It also took a lot of time in like the background. It wasn't just me sitting here and talking at you like a book review. It took me going to the store, taking a picture of every book, taking a video of the table, then getting on Canva, then looking up these authors, then writing things down, then making all these little photos to put in the video. So I really hope you enjoy this type of video. I'm gonna try and do one more, which is going to be speculative fiction, which may be a little more dramatic. So if you're interested in speculative fiction and my thoughts on what was on display, make sure you check it out when that video becomes available. Thank you guys so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Bye!